Brad Schneider is among them. Congressman of Illinois, member of the House Foreign Affairs, Ways and Means Committee, co-chair of the bipartisan Abraham Accords Caucus. It's good to see you, Congressman. Thank you. Just in the past couple of hours from the Associated Press, Biden administration says Israel's use of U.S. arms likely violated international law, but evidence is incomplete. How are we to read the past couple of days as anything other than a move by the Biden administration away from Israel, either to something neutral or something that could certainly be seen as pro-Hamas for perceived domestic political gain?
Well, thanks for having me. And let's be clear, the administration is not moving away from Israel. What the administration is doing is signaling Israel that the U.S. Administration doesn't think Israel should go in a major operation into Rafah on the border with Egypt. They made the decision last week, the Biden administration made the decision to withhold a shipment of weapons. I've criticized that decision. I think it sends the wrong signal, a mixed signal, at a very crucial time. There were rumors that there was a approachment to a agreement to release the hostages, to pause the fighting for a period of time, and Hamas basically sent something that was not what was agreed to, but at least there were discussions going on. And my concern is that the administration sends mixed signals when they're telling Hamas they have to make an agreement, but telling Israel that they can't finish Hamas off in Rafah. So we need to be clear. We need to be clear-eyed. What's at stake? Hamas started this war on October 7th. As long as Hamas can reign over Gaza and threaten Israel, there will not be peace for either Palestinians or Israelis.
All right, no argument there. But I think the words matter here, and I appreciate the position you're taking. But you've said two things that are kind of contradictory. You've said that the administration isn't moving away from Israel, but they're sending mixed signals to the point that Hamas is emboldened enough to walk away from any kind of talks because they know the U.S. administration is pushing Israel not to go after Hamas. So how is that not moving away from Israel?
Well, President Biden said this week that he supports Israel's right to defend itself. We'll make sure Israel has those defensive weapons. There's a disagreement, a significant disagreement between the Biden administration and the Israeli government with respect to Rafah. And I don't think it's just the government. I think the majority of Israelis recognize that as long as Hamas, as they are doing right as we speak, fire rockets into Israel from Rafah,
Look, Congressman, you get no argument from us in terms of what Hamas is and what Israel needs to do to destroy Hamas. But you zoom out here to a larger picture of the Middle East and the world. The president of the United States, who ran on a position of bringing America back, is now in the dangerous position of the world not listening to him. Vladimir Putin, Joe Biden said this man needs to go. He's still in power. He told Iran, don't. Iran did. He told Israel, don't. Israel did attack Iran. He's now effectively, as you pointed out, protecting Hamas from Israel wiping them out. And Israel says, never mind, we're going in anyway. Is there not a danger in the world not taking the president of the United States seriously anymore?
So I think we see the world differently. I saw Russia invade Ukraine 2 years ago, and I saw the United States, having restored NATO and the confidence of the alliance, hold this alliance together and help Ukraine defend itself against that Russian attack. And just recently, Congress finally, 6 months late, but finally passed aid to send to Ukraine. I saw the president of the United States stand with Israel 11 days after the October 7th attack. President Biden became the first president to go to Israel during a time of war. On April 13th, when Iran did launch more than 350 missiles and drones, the United States worked with Israel, the UK, France, Jordan, as well as other allies in the region, and defeated that attack. And so the president has a perspective. And I agree with them many of the times. I agree with them, disagree with them other times. I think it was a mistake to say they're withholding weapons. But I think at the end of the day, Israel has been getting billions of dollars of weapons from the United States in self-defense to defeat Hamas. The United States has been working with Israel. I've worked as hard as anyone with Israel, with the U.S., with Egypt, others to make sure aid is getting into Gaza. So it's not just a matter of defeating Hamas in this fight, but making sure there's a a better future for everyone in the region.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.